If you're close to 40 or already past it, and you still feel financially unsettled, this might be hard to hear. It's probably not about how much you earn. It's about the patterns that are still running you. By 40, most people have had enough time to work hard, try things, fail at some of them, recover from others. You may have increased your income. You may have survived divorce, layoffs, medical bills, family obligations, career pivots. And yet there's still that quiet tension, that subtle fear. I should feel more stable by now. This is not about net worth milestones. It's not about hitting a certain number in your bank account. The real question at this stage of life isn't, how much do you have? It's, what patterns are still shaping your financial behavior without your awareness? There are 7 internal financial goals that matter more than income, investments, or status. They're invisible, psychological, subtle, but they determine whether the next 20 years feel grounded or reactive. Let's look at them honestly. In your 20s and early 30s, financial instability can feel temporary. There's time, there's experimentation, there's forgiveness. But around 40, something shifts internally. Time feels more finite. Parents age. Health becomes more visible. Career volatility feels riskier. Energy is no longer infinite. And money begins to represent something deeper. Autonomy, security, dignity. If your internal relationship with money hasn't matured alongside your age, the anxiety intensifies. This isn't because you failed. It's because midlife exposes patterns that were easier to ignore when time felt abundant. Now let's explore the 7 internal goals that define true financial maturity. Hidden pain. I thought once I earned more, I'd finally feel enough. Many adults carry an invisible equation. Achievement, child legitimacy. If you grew up in an environment where approval followed performance, good grades, productivity, responsibility, you may have internalized the idea that your value is conditional. Money becomes proof. When income rises, you feel temporarily validated. When it dips even slightly, your nervous system reacts as if your identity is threatened. A slow quarter feels like failure. A missed promotion feels like humiliation. A bonus feels like relief, but only briefly. Psychologists Edward D.C. and Richard Ryan, through self-determination theory, showed that when identity is heavily driven by external rewards, intrinsic stability weakens. When your sense of self depends on outcomes, you become emotionally dependent on performance. At 40, this becomes dangerous. Why? Because midlife introduces volatility, career transitions, industry shifts, caregiving responsibilities, health disruptions. If your identity is fused with earnings, every fluctuation becomes personal. The reframe is subtle but powerful. Track behaviors, not outcomes. Consistency, skill development, decision quality, integrity in how you earn. These are identity anchors. Income is a byproduct, not proof of worth. When you separate who you are from what you earn, money loses its power to destabilize your self-image. And that shift alone reduces anxiety more than any raise ever could. There's a quiet truth many intelligent adults avoid. You're not buying things, you're buying relief. After a stressful meeting, a tense conversation, a lonely evening, a purchase offers a small dopamine surge. Anticipation feels good. The click feels decisive. The delivery feels like progress. But neuroscience shows something important. Dopamine spikes during anticipation, not ownership. The emotional high fades quickly. What lingers? The financial consequence, and often subtle regret. Now cortisol rises, the stress hormone, especially if spending contradicts your long-term goals. You begin oscillating between stimulation and stress. This is not a discipline problem. It's emotional conditioning. Your brain learned. Spending dodges relief. Over time, that reflex becomes automatic. The practical test is simple. Before buying, pause and ask, would I still want this if I felt calm and secure right now? If your desire weakens when your mood stabilizes, the purchase was regulation, not value. At 40, emotional regulation must mature alongside financial decisions. Otherwise, your income increases, but so does your volatility. True stability requires learning to tolerate discomfort without anesthetizing it through spending. That's emotional adulthood. Avoidance is rarely about math. It's about shame. Many capable, intelligent adults avoid opening financial dashboards because the numbers trigger a narrative. I should be further by now. This creates cognitive dissonance. the psychological discomfort between your current reality and your ideal self-image. Your brain resolves dissonance by avoiding exposure, but avoidance has a cost. Uncertainty increases. Uncertainty increases anxiety. Anxiety increases impulsive decisions. The very act of not looking amplifies fear. This is similar to gradual desensitization used in behavioral therapy. Exposure reduces emotional charge over time. So, instead of dramatic financial overhauls, try something smaller. Create a weekly 20-minute financial reality window. No fixing, no judging, no strategizing, just observing. Open accounts. Look at balances. Notice reactions. That's it. Over time, numbers lose their emotional intensity. Clarity replaces fear. And clarity is stabilizing. If I just earned more, I'd finally feel safe. This belief is deeply common. But safety is rarely about income. It's about predictability and margin. Behavioral economists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated how loss aversion shapes decision-making. The brain fears losing what it has more intensely than it enjoys gaining more. Combine that with hedonic adaptation, our tendency to normalize upgrades, and you get a dangerous cycle. Income rises, lifestyle expands, obligations grow, pressure increases. Many high earners feel fragile, not because they lack income, but because they lack margin. Stability is not revenue. Stability is optionality. Optionality means you can say no, you can pivot, you can pause, you can withstand disruption without panic. Margin creates emotional breathing room. Without margin, higher income simply raises the stakes. At 40, the goal shifts from expansion to resilience. Resilience feels quieter than ambition, but far more powerful. It's easy to blame markets, taxes, the economy, your upbringing, and external forces absolutely matter. But if your narrative leans too heavily on them, something subtle happens. You disengage. Psychologist Julian Rotter introduced the concept of locus of control. Individuals with a strong internal locus, who believe their actions influence outcomes, tend to make more adaptive long-term decisions. Those with a predominantly external orientation often react rather than design. If setbacks feel mostly outside your control, planning can feel pointless. So you postpone, you drift. You respond instead of initiate. The reframe is not about denial of reality. It's about reclaiming agency where it exists. After any financial setback, write 2 columns. What was outside my control? What was within my control? You will always find something in the second column. That's where identity strengthens. At 40, financial maturity means recognizing constraints without surrendering agency. Agency restores dignity. Midlife often brings a quiet realization. Some people reach 40 and discover they built a life they don't actually want. The house is impressive. The car is upgraded. The title sounds important. But internally, something feels misaligned. Social comparison theory explains part of this. We recalibrate our expectations based on peers. What once felt luxurious becomes baseline. But comparison-driven ambition produces chronic dissatisfaction. You can win financially and still feel empty, because the goals were externally authored. Ask yourself, if no one could see my lifestyle, would I still choose it? Would you still live where you live? Drive what you drive? Work the hours you work? If the answer shifts when visibility disappears, your goals may be fueled by validation, not alignment. At 40, alignment becomes more valuable than status. Energy is finite. Time is visible. Chasing what impresses others at the cost of internal peace becomes less appealing. Financial maturity is not about shrinking ambition. It's about refining it. When money aligns with your values, decisions feel calmer, and calm is a sign of coherence. This may be the most dangerous belief of all. I've already wasted too much time. This thought creates paralysis. Behavioral science calls this status quo bias, the brain's preference for familiar discomfort over uncertain change. At 40, urgency increases, but so does avoidance. You feel behind, so you hesitate, because the stakes feel higher. But here's something rarely discussed. For many adults, financial patterns stabilize between 40 and 60, not earlier. Peak earning years often occur here. Decision-making becomes more deliberate. Impulsivity decreases. Clarity improves. The danger isn't being behind. The danger is disengaging. Instead of dramatic reinvention, focus on micro shifts. Reduce one recurring expense intentionally. Increase one automated investment. Initiate one uncomfortable but honest financial conversation. Review one neglected account. Small actions rebuild identity. Momentum is psychological before it's financial, and identity shifts through repeated evidence, not grand gestures. It is not too late. But it does require re-engagement. By 40, financial maturity is not about outperforming others. It's about integration, emotional regulation, identity stability, behavioral awareness, intentional alignment. These 7 goals are internal, invisible, but they shape every external outcome. If self-worth is separated from income, volatility hurts less. If spending is no longer emotional anesthesia, consistency improves. If avoidance decreases, clarity rises. If stability is defined by margin, pressure drops. If agency increases, design replaces reaction. If goals align with values, dissatisfaction fades. If you reject the too late narrative, momentum returns. Notice something. None of this requires doubling your income. It requires reorganizing your relationship with money. That's slower work, quieter work, but far more sustainable. You don't need financial adrenaline. You need emotional steadiness, and steadiness compounds. If you haven't achieved these 7 internal goals yet, that is not evidence of failure. It is feedback. Feedback that certain patterns are still active. Feedback that your identity may need updating. Feedback that maturity is asking for integration. At 40, the real milestone isn't net worth. It's self-awareness. Money stops being a scoreboard and becomes a mirror reflecting your habits, your fears, your values, your agency. You cannot rewrite your 20s. You cannot undo early mistakes. You cannot accelerate time, but you can become more conscious. And consciousness changes behavior. There is still time, not for shortcuts, not for fantasy, not for overnight reinvention, but for deliberate reconstruction. The next decade does not belong to intensity. It belongs to clarity. And clarity is quieter than ambition, but far more stabilizing. If this conversation felt honest, if it reflected something you've sensed but rarely articulated, this space exists for people who think deeply about money, identity, and the psychology behind stability. Not to chase more, but to understand better. And understanding, when faced directly, becomes leverage.